Alright, so let's get Texture Remix installed and start generating remixes. So first, I'm in Blender 4.2. You click Edit, Preferences, and click Add-ons, and then Install drop-down, click Install from Disk, browse to where you saved the remix installer, and click Install. And what you'll see here is Texture Remix and a few preferences and properties. Make sure you have this checked, otherwise it won't show up. And with this window open, you can just push N when you push your mouse over the 3D viewport, and you can see over here it's installed. Just going back to this properties panel, a few things to note. You got your instructions. If you click that, it'll open up a PDF, and all the instructions of how to use the plugin will be here. Also, you'll have is a URL for Stable Diffusion. If you've got it installed, there'll be a video that you can click to tell you how to do that. And then you can do open your styles for your AI, and over here is a list of pre-built styles that you can add and stack when you're generating AI art. You can always add your own, just make sure you follow the convention that I have over here. A little tip, the ones that are P underscroll generally can be used for positive prompt, and N underscroll are used for negative prompts, and you can always add your own however you want to. This is just the default list that I provide. Alright, and then delete all remixes. This clears out all the data. With that, let's start doing some remixing. So I've got a default Blender scene, so I'm just going to save it. I'm going to call it Spitfire, right? Okay, because we're going to generate a remix for a Spitfire. It's going to go A, X, delete everything, then go File. I'm going to import my 3D model. Find this very nice Spitfire on Fab that we'll use today. I'll link it in the video description in case you want to use the same one. And let's have a look at the model. And there it is. Right, so very nice model, got a beautiful texture, but I want to change this because I want to suit my game. So with that selected, we can actually start remixing right away. But in order to show how it works, I'm going to take you through a few steps, right? So the first thing is you can add remixes by clicking on the plus, and you can delete them by clicking on the little trash can there, all right? So I'm going to add a remix here. I'm going to call this Spitfire View. And I'm going to jump to the UV editing because Text Remix is built around UVs. Okay. So by default over here, we have one UV map. You can see. I'm just going to push N to bring up the panel again and go to Remix. Okay. Tab. This is a UV, and this UV layer has been created, and it's the optimal way for this model, right? Every remix that you make, when you say capture UV, captures a UV from the view that you're in. It projects your view, and that's how remixing works. You line up your UVs to images. So if I import an image over here, I've got a Spitfire that I want to remix, I need to line up these UVs. And if I go to top view and rotate this around by 180 on the Z, enter, say capture remix, it's going to overwrite that UV and try line it up. And what you can do is you can try and scale these things up as you want to, try and make it matching. But it gets quite hard because in the future, if you want to capture multiple UVs, you forget where another view, all right? And you got another UV map on the side. You go into the UV, there it is, right? But if you want to go back to the previous one, you forgot where it is. So what we've got here is in the setup, we can use cameras to be almost like anchor points for remixes. So I'm just going to delete these guys over here, keep the original, trash, okay? So I'm going to add a camera on empty. And what this does is adds an array of cameras pointed at empty. All right. And I'm going to flip it. So R90 on the X. Select the camera over here. Control and 0 on the numpad to make that the active camera. And then I want it to be square, right? Because I want to kind of square this off. Especially if you're doing AI art, squaring generally is better for the different models. I'll just keep a square here. Select the parent, scale this out a little bit. And then if I say add a remix, so over here, add a remix, and call this top view, capture, go into it, see top views there, and I've got my remix here. So if I ever want to come back to it, I can select the camera, Control and 0, and I go back to it. And this way that you can save Remix's camera positions for when you want to capture the UVs. If you make a mistake or want to go back to it in the future, right? So super handy, that camera array. All right, now what you have to do in order to apply this, you need to scale the UV. I'm just going to do a rough scaling job over here. So I'm going to stretch it out on the X and the Y. For the ones on the side, let me just make this bigger so you can see. I'm going to use proportional editing. So I click on that, G, and if I scroll with the mouse wheel, you can see the top left is the amount is increasing, decreasing, just to drag it in there, right? Because I want the wings to be on the tips. The more you drag it out, the more vertices get affected. And I'm just going to move these around over here. Pushing L on the keypad. G, take this off. G, X to move it around. G, X. Okay, and then this little gun turret over here. G, X. L on the keypad selects the linked files. I mean the linked vertices, right? So there you go. G, X. And this one here, GX, GX, there we go. I'm just going to check the top and the tail. So the top I can bring up a little bit. Again, select that one, GX, scale this down. Okay, and then just want to look at the tail. Tail's a little bit off, so I'll select that, GY. I'm going to scale it down a little bit. I don't mind if it doesn't sit perfectly, right? The wings went off here. So I'm going to undo, there we go. Because I have proportional editing on. Just make sure you uncheck that, right? And scale this down a little bit. GY. Okay, that's good enough for me, right? Okay, now what we have to do is you need to remix onto something. This comes with a default image that you can always, over here, choose base color, and you can remix on top of it. What I'll do is I'll actually add a new image, and then we can remix on top of a brand new image so we can preserve the original one. So in order to do that, I'll just do a quick method over here. You're gonna add a new material, call this base Spitfire, right? And inside base color, I'm going to choose this little dot. I'm going to say image texture, make it an image texture, Spitfire base, and yeah, that's okay. All right, so it's black. What that did is it just added a image texture into a material for my Spitfire. Instead of just going image texture here and then connecting it up, you can do it from the viewport, which is, you know, kind of handy, right? So a base image, I need to make that into my base Spitfire because this is what I'm going to be painting on. And the base UV map is not my captured one, but it's the one that I want as my UV mapped primary. And I've got my image now. Sorry, my remix, and I've got my top view. Now I want to select this one because I want to paint this onto my base, right? So I want to paint this image onto the base. And when I say load for remix, if you see here, it's transferring the UV map layout onto the mesh, right? So there you go, it's done. What you can do here also, if I just undo this, okay, and I say load for remix, you can always mirror on the X, Y, or Z over here like that. So this way you can, if you know it's symmetrical, right, you can paint quite quickly what you want to do. That's great, but what happens if I want to add another image into this? Because if I look at my library of Spitfires, I have this one, which has these really cool, I'm going to just click on this to remove that, these really cool markings here to signify different things, right? So how you can do this is, I'm still in my camera view here. I'm going to add a new remix. I'm going to call this top view 2. I'm just going to save, right? And I'm going to put that one, this is now top 4, into that. But I first have to capture my UV. So I select the object, you can always see what you've got by clicking on that UV maps with the object selected. Capture UV, top view 2, tab into edit mode, enable so you can see everything, and the UV slightly off. The key one on this is I want to get the wings in, so I'm going to line this in the middle, kind of best estimate. The tail doesn't really matter too much, but it's the wings that I really care about. So I'm going to scale the Y, a little bit GY, okay, GY a little bit up, there we go, okay, let's go check at the tips. Yeah, that's okay, alright, it's good enough for me. So we go over here, with everything selected, not the top row, but this new one, and I say load remix, and then I got my strength at 100, I'm going to start painting, and you can see I can bring in a secondary picture. You can do as many as you want to, right, onto the mesh. And if you see here, I've gone over that line, but I can just, while inside the remixing mode, just say load remix on the previous original one, and you can go down. And what's quite nice is that you've got these different brushes, right? So if I want to do a line brush, I can choose it. I can hold Alt to make it straight, and you go down. So again, you can hold Alt, and you can go down, right? So I'm going to undo that. Under stroke, I can go space. One other handy thing to note is, because this is a clone tool, if I uncheck that, so under the tool, uncheck the image property, if you hold Control, you can set a clone point, and then I can clone up, right? If you can see, it's literally cloning different parts of the mesh, of the texture onto the mesh. So very handy to note that little trick. It's good for touch-ups of, like, people's faces and things like that, especially for skin. Alright, so there's a full remix done. I'm going to just load the top one. I just missed a part there, okay. And if I look at my base texture, Spitfire base, you can see the original UVs have been kept, and the painted stuff that I've done has been transposed onto the original, right? So no texture baking needed. Very easy and quick workflow to get it in game, right? And if I like the look of this, all right, so I still have to do the side view, but if you wanted to see in a rendered view, I'm just going to take it out of orthographic mode. Like the camera array, we have lights, so I'm going to add some lights over here. I can go G, Z up here and scale this in, and I have a quick light setup. This is especially important if you're doing rendering of AI. It needs a wallet scene, right? So let me do that again and show you. You can either do lights on an empty or lights on selected. Selected means it's on the actual model itself. Empty is one of the empty primitives, right? So there we go. In a nutshell, that's how the remixing works. And as you go through, there are notifications in case something doesn't work. Little pop-ups will appear, or notification messages will tell you what to do. All right. As for the side, what we can do is we can generate an AI image, and we can apply that. So we can combine both original pictures and AI. So I'm going to start my Stable Diffusion. You can watch another tutorial on how to set it up, which will be over here on the link in the video. And once that's running, we can start to generate images. Okay, so I have Stable Diffusion up and running over here. I'm just going to minimize, and with that running, now I can click Enable AI. And you see here I have the panel all inside Blender where I can start to do prompting. So I'm going to say Spitfire from World War II cyberpunk style neon lights, armor panels, ironwork. Alright, so just as general prompt, I'm going to say what I want to do is I want to render it from the side. Okay, so I'm going to select this camera, Control and 0 to select the side camera. And then the properties, I want to change this from perspective to orthographic, because when you're rendering capturing the UVs, perspective doesn't align the front and the back of the plane correctly. It does a slight, obviously, perspective overlap, and I want the lines to be exactly on top of each other. That's why I've changed it to orthographic. And then I can zoom in to make sure it fits a full frame. And with my camera parent open, selected, sorry, and the camera focus empty selected, I'm just going to move everything up so it's all centered. You don't have to, but I like to do this so it's all, looking good. Inside the panel on the side here, I'm going to add a few styles. Click on the drop down and say realistic, add positive, and I'm going to say cyberpunk, add positive, and then negative, low quality, right? So you can stack them, right? It's pretty handy. View, I'm going to say side view. Something to note, the reason why there's this option is you don't have to go back and edit all your prompts. You can just inject, in this case it's a view, but you could actually inject a few variables if you want to, which kind of in the prompt goes into the front, which before it sends it to Stable Diffusion. Very handy. Number of steps, I'm going to say 20. Denoise and strength, this is how similar it is to the original. Closer to 1 is more variation, so I'll say 0.65. Choose a location to save it. Alright, it's on my hard drive. Without that, you won't be able to get the render option. Just scroll down and I'll say render. So right now we're doing text to image. So it does have quite a bit of variation. As soon as you choose, image to image, it becomes a bit more, realistic, right? So I'm not sure what that is. It's not exactly what I want. Multiple tail wings, but it's kind of close. So what I'll do is I'll enable ControlNet and I'll switch it to image. So it's going to take this render from Blender, send it through, and then give me back an image which hopefully will match as close as I can to that. So I'll say render. So it's looking a lot, so it's looking a lot better. It's got the proportions of the plane. It had an open canopy there, some neon propeller. Not too bad. I'm gonna see if I can actually maybe make this 0.7. Try one more time. And let's open up this one. So yeah, I mean, like it's interesting. You can always, if you close this window, just so you can open up the last render at the bottom there, or you can always look at the control net that it goes through. This is a depth map, and you get different control nets that you can apply, and you'll see the results over here. So you can use these things for tessellation and things like that. So for argument's sake, I want to use the last one. And what I'll do is I'll select the mesh. I'll go up here, I'm going to add a remix called side view. And I capture the UV, because remember I have the camera selected still. Capture UV. And to show you something interesting here, tab it, there's a UV. If I load the last remix, can you see how the UV really lines up, right? Because of the depth map. So you're kind of messing around with the UV, pulling them and pushing them. You don't really have to do too much, right? Because of the AI generated based on depth map. Super handy and a really, really big time saver. Some other features to note, you can fix your seeds, and when you fix it, you could then bump up your resolution and then render, but it just takes a lot longer. That way you can get better quality. Okay, so what I want to do now is going to push 5 on the numpad to get out of orthographic, and I want to paint the side of my plane. So with this one selected, I'm going to use the last render for remix. So it pops it in there, load for remix, and I'll start painting that beautiful texture that I just generated, right? So I go over here on the tail wings. Got that detail over here. And something to note, because you got the clone brush here, you can actually blend, old textures together with new textures. So that way you can get that nice fade between the two. So yeah, here we go. I'm going to bump this up, hit the strength up high. just paint the side too. If you mirrored the side, you wouldn't have to do this. I just forgot to do that. And on the tail, there we go. So an interesting blend between two different styles, but it kind of works. And if I go into the material view, you can see got these two things here. Slight issue there, but if you remember, my original remix is already saved. Load the remix, bang, all clean, right? No issues. So that's just a general workflow of how to use Texture Remix. And when you're all happy with that, select your model, file, export as FBX. Choose where you want to save it. So desktop, I'm going to call it Spitfire. Path mode to copy. Check the little box to pack everything and export. Now you can import it into Unity, Unreal, and remember the beautiful thing is you don't need to, where it is, texture bake. It's all done for you already. That's really cool. All right, hope that helped. Drop a comment, subscribe, and more videos will be coming. It works for hard surface, soft surface. It works really, really well for people and creatures, etc. And because you've got the power of AI, it's limitless. Hope that helps. And thank you for supporting my work, right?